Chopra sent me this email, and obviously, he's saying Oprah Winfrey, but I'm sure Oprah Winfrey means nothing in India. Why should we do Oprah Winfrey? And I'm like, Willie, send me the email right now. In the fourth year, we invited Oprah, and with Oprah, all of America arrived and all of the world's press arrived, and rest is history. Jaipur Literature Festival started more as an accident. It wasn't a 5-year and a 10-year and a 15-year plan to create the largest literary festival in the world.
JLF has now, it's going to complete 20 years. There have been some controversies, there have been some difficulties.
3 of them sort of said, we'll kill you, murder you.
Were you not afraid?
Never stuff. And I'm like, do it, but speak to my EA in terms of what time, because, it's very difficult. If you're doing something that's front-facing, assume that there's going to be incidents.
What is that thing that makes a speaker interesting or captivating?
A great story, and the ability to tell that story in a really interesting way. 7:30 a.m. at Diggy, and I was standing. A man and a boy came through the Haveli gate of Diggy. I sleep on the footpath in front of the SMS hospital up the street. And I know that I will never be able to afford to send my son to school, nor be able to afford to buy him a book. But I thought if he heard a story, it would change his life forever. It was the first time that we realized that what we had set off to do is to create a city accessible festival for everybody, not just for you and me, but for those folks who do not have access.
Sanjoy Roy is the managing director of Teamwork Arts, the cultural powerhouse behind the Jaipur Literature Festival and a global circuit of festivals. Known as an entrepreneur of the arts, he's led Teamwork Arts to stage 33 festivals across 42 cities in 17 countries. Beyond the stage, he serves as a trustee of the Salaam Baalak Trust, which supports street and working children in Delhi. His career spans theatre production and direction, television, film, literature, music, and heritage. He's now added author to that list with There's a Ghost in My Room, Living with the Supernatural, a memoir, travelogue, chronicling his encounters with the unexplained. Welcome to the Aditi Govitrikar Show. So you've been the founder of one of the biggest lit fest of the world, Jaipur Lit Fest, JLF as you call it. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, Aditi, really glad to be here. So lovely to meet up with you again. Well, the Jaipur Literature Festival started more as an accident. It wasn't, as Harvard Business School used to teach, that we had a 5-year and a 10-year and a 15-year plan to create the largest literary festival in the world. It started really as a heritage project, a way to be able to show how the arts can create value for built heritage. And all the way back in 1999, 2000, when we first set up a festival in Edinburgh, and the Edinburgh Festivals is all 3,000 shows or whatever happen in repurposed venues there, which are old, heritage venues in the UNESCO World Heritage Site. And 2 people, Faith and John Singh, who set up Anokhi, the block print company. So they had come out to see what we were doing, and they were like, this is what we need to do in Jaipur to stop having people pull down their old Havelis and forts and palaces. So we helped them set up something called the Jaipur Heritage Virasat Festival. It's going to be our 20th year.
20th year.
Next
Congratulations.
Year. And I remember, it was January, cold morning in Jaipur. I come down, go to, in Diggy Fort, Diggy Haveli, there's this, their Darbar Hall. And I walk in there and I ask my colleague, so how many chairs do we have? And he said, there's 230. I said, 230, who's coming? Take out 100 chairs kind of stuff. But people came, and it was one of those word of mouth festivals. We had come back and started doing work in India after having traveled the world. And because of our offices in different parts of the world, we were able to get the word out very quickly. So people came in that first year, 5,000-6,000 people, second year 14, third year 30, fourth year 60. And it's in the fourth year when we received an email asking whether we would be happy to invite Oprah Winfrey to the festival. Oprah was very keen to come. And I'm like, yeah, you don't call me, I'll call you. Of course, we invited Oprah, and with Oprah, all of America arrived and all of the world's press arrived. And as they say, the rest is history.
So you mentioned that you asked your assistant to remove certain number of chairs. Why did you say that? Because given that you already had an experience of organizing events, festivals successfully, why that hesitation or, lack of confidence?
Jaipur for us was new. We'd never done anything in Jaipur, and we had done very little in India. And if we had done a dipstick survey as to whether this would be the place for a literary festival, I think we'd be laughed out of hearth and home. Because typically people would look at Bombay or Delhi or one of the big major cities.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. We had an instinct that, I keep saying that London is not a festival city, but Edinburgh is.
Yeah.
And Paris is not a festival city, but Avignon is. And in the same way, I've always felt that Delhi may not be a festival city, but Jaipur certainly was. But you're still worried, right, whether people will come, who had created something which was, non-stop through the day, etc. But like I said, people came. It's the color, the forts, the palaces, the programming, all of that put together has created what we now know as such a historic festival.
And when you received an email from Oprah Winfrey, was there a sense of disbelief that, am I reading this right? Is it a prank that's being... So I'll give you an example why I'm asking you this is because when I was doing my Dr. A talks on Instagram, which was Instagram Live that had just begun and I had started, and I got a message from Gaur Gopal Das ji saying that, I thought somebody was pulling a prank.
So it was really funny because this is... Deepak Chopra had sent the email to Willie, and Willie hadn't spoken to me about it. And one day when we were talking programming, he said, oh, by the way, Deepak Chopra sent me this email. And obviously, he's saying Oprah Winfrey, but I'm sure Oprah Winfrey means nothing in India. Why would you want, why should we do Oprah Winfrey? And I'm like, Willie, send me the email right now. So it was, because, Oprah had approached Deepak had then approached us. It was pretty much bona fide. So, and by which time, because by the fourth year also, the idea of coming to India has always been exotic, I think, for most of the world.
Yes.
And that's something that really we were able to cash in on, that people could come to India in a sort of controlled circumstances and have a sense of excitement.
So, given that JLF has now, it's going to complete 20 years, there have been some controversies, there have been some difficulties. I remember reading about Salman Rushdie, who was going to be part of the festival and he did not come. There have been a lot of morchas, etc. Tell us a little bit about the controversies that have surrounded this festival.
So I think Salman Rushdie was supposed to come in this year that Oprah was attending the festival. And for whatever reason, the government of the time in Rajasthan didn't want him to be there. Or rather, the minute we announced his name, a lot of the Muslim organizations, were up in arms saying that you can't invite him. And there was a lot of protests, etc. And I said to my colleagues in the government, I said, I'm very happy to go and meet with these 21 organizations who are protesting.
Were you not afraid?
Never. And this is what, the government said, you're going there and you shouldn't, and, they'll do X or Y or Z. And I'm like, okay, let's get to that later. And I brushed up on my Urdu and I go and there's these 21 heads of organizations there. And I thought I had basically what I said to them, I said, if you put pressure on us today to rescind an invitation from a person like that, tomorrow somebody will put pressure on us to not give you a space to speak, as has happened. And I said, don't do this because this is ridiculous. I said, you have every right to protest. This is not about his book, Satanic Verses, etc. It's going to be on his new book. And, it's a democratic country, so do whatever you need to do. But, you need to rethink this. And I thought we had a deal on the table because, 19 of the 21 organizations understood what I was saying. 3 of them sort of said, we'll kill you, murder you, all of this kind of stuff. And I'm like, do it, but speak to my EA in terms of what time, because, it's very difficult. And then, of course, things got worse and worse because there was a whole whatever. And then, of course, Salman chose not to come at the end of the day because of all of the threats going through. So year on year thereafter, as it happened, there was some kind of news that came out of the festival. The next year, I think it was the Ashish Nandi case, where he talked about a particular community, and then the next year was something else. So the world's press arrived here to sort of, in the thing that they would get a major breaking story. And, to us, it was, how do we steer clear of controversy? Because for us, that wasn't the purpose, because every time a controversy broke, it basically distracted and detracted from the other 500 writers and all of the work that was on tap. And for us, that was so vital. So we then started working very carefully with our PR agencies, etc., to really showcase what the writers were saying, rather than look at, the controversies that were being spun out.
Even with that, I'm sure there was still some kind of negativity or some controversy or something that keeps happening. How do you deal with that as a person, as a founder?
So pretty much early in the days, I remember telling my colleagues that, listen, whatever we do without fear. We must do what we have to do. Governments or people in authority must do what they have to do. And sometimes there'll be, a clash in understanding on either side. I was very clear that what we were doing, because we were in the public space, we were going to be, at various points of time, up the proverbial shit creek. And you have to be very clear about that, because otherwise, you're a public figure. Why would you place yourself in this position of vulnerability? But it goes with the job, so I don't think this is a thing of, it's not about a choice. It's, if you're doing something that's front facing, assume that there's going to be incidents. I mean, there was this year where, as it happened, I'd just gone to the lunch area, and this is still when we were in Diggy Palace, so, hundreds of thousands of people coming in. And I just popped in just before lunch was, we opened at about 12 o'clock for lunch. And as I popped in, this massive tree that was literally lined up in front of me cracked, and half of it fell. And who did it fall on? Our then National Security Advisor, Shiv Shankar Menon. It fell on him, an ambassador. Luckily, they were saved because, there was a table, and the table saved them. But the fact that this huge tree had fallen and had hurt some of the people, etc. But because our systems are so well rehearsed that, 10 minutes later, you couldn't tell that there was something. It had been cordoned off. The tree was being hacked. The people who had got hurt had been moved to hospital, etc. So stuff happens. And it's not just here. It happens across the world.
True.
If you yourself are going to go into being a lunatic when stuff happens, then there's no way you're going to be able to think calmly. I think whenever I see people going off on a tangent or getting angry or being hectic, I'm like, that's a luxury. For folks like us, you don't have that luxury.
No, we don't.
You just have to be calm, because that's what you have to portray. And the minute you're calm and people see that you're calm, half the problem gets resolved.
Now, coming to the speakers or people that you have put on stage, and there, I'm sure, hundreds of or thousands of them that you have, put on stage. What is that thing that makes a speaker interesting or captivating?
A great story, and the ability to tell that story in a really interesting way. I'll give you an example. Nobel laureate V.S. Naipaul, who's so reticent. And year on year, I used to go and say, Savidya, I really want you to come in. He's like, am I Sanjoy? I'm a writer. I am a writer. Am I a performing monkey? No, I'm not. Now, people like that could afford to not be a performing monkey and have their books sell.
Yeah.
But he said it in a way, and wherever Vidya was, he was never overstated. I remember once in London, there was Tarun and me, we were waiting to receive him somewhere. And, we found ourselves in the kitchen garden of this big estate rather than the front. And he saw us there. So the driver that was bringing him in the Rolls Royce came up to the kitchen garden. And then later I heard him say, these schoolboys. So it's really, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be dramatic. You don't have to act it out. But as long as you have got a great story to tell and you're able to articulate it and capture the imagination of your audience like you do when you do your films, you know exactly, what's the kind of swivel that you're going to do or what's the kind of eye movement that you're going to do that will hook the audience without making it over dramatized. And that's what it is. And we've had all kinds. We've had great poets. We've had, the people like Wallace Soyinka, etc., the great playwrights. And invariably, it's always been, doesn't matter what, if you're able to tell your story in a way that captures the imagination of the audience, that's it.
Has there been anybody who you thought, because again, with the experience that you have, I'm sure, you know that, okay, this person will be good, this person will be okay. But, sometimes there are strange things that happen and you also get surprised. So has there been somebody like that who you thought would be great on stage with that expectation you've put that person on stage only to realize that, oh my God.
Everybody has a bad hair day.
True.
So even the best of performers, and we've had everybody from Amitabh Bachchan and Amir and everybody coming to various platforms that we have across the world. And I said, everybody has a bad hair day. So there are times when, what you expect doesn't happen like this. I won't take the name, but a very eminent theatre practitioner from India, we had them interview David Hare and Tom Stoppard. And this is a theatre practitioner who's known for their practice, really, top of the whatever. The person froze on stage doing this interview, just froze. Luckily, because, Sir Tom and David are such masters that they just continued the conversation between themselves. On the other hand, this African-American poet used to live 2 blocks away from the Boulder Public Library, which is one of our venues in Boulder, Colorado. Nobody had ever heard of him. And I was just very keen that we have an African-American poet to open the Boulder Public Library JLF season that year. And I said, Joanne, would you consider, and he said, I've never done this before. I said, doesn't matter anything because, your work, I engaged with his work.
What made you pick him? Did you see something in him?
Yeah, it's one of these instinct things, Aditi, when you look at somebody and you just have an instinct that they're larger than the sum of the parts that you see. And Joanne was that. He just blew the roof off the house. I think what's really exciting about my work, and, I travel the world. We have 30-odd festivals. We do hundreds of acts every year across the world. What's so exciting is when you hear talent or you hear somebody who's exceptional and it completely, your soul and your heart soar and you celebrate, whether it's that music or the dance or the literature or the writing or the design or whatever it is. And at that excitement, just as the lights dim, and the curtain rises.
Of course.
And it's that one moment where you don't know, is it going to be a lemon or is it going to be something outstanding? And believe you me, I've seen so much of rubbish as well because that's my job. You have to see stuff and a lot of the times you see rubbish. And it's because you see rubbish, when you see something that's just exceptional, you're like, oh my God. This person is touched by a completely incredible universe of energy.
So do you believe in divinity? Because I feel, that's my thought, of course, my personal opinion, that people who can sing or who can write so beautifully, there is something which is, it cannot come with practice, or it cannot just, it's there. It's that divine blessing. Do you believe in that, or am I wrong? Because I'm ready to accept that.
I believe in a universal energy, and you can call it God or Allah or Ram or Rahim or whatever you want to call it. But I do believe that all of us are vehicles. This is a vehicle. Your podcast is a vehicle. Your acting, your films are vehicles. Everything that we do is a vehicle. Yes, we can say, or our ego can say, I've written it, or I've done it, or I'm the, whatever in this. But I think the great performers know when they are touched. When I used to act on stage, it's not that magic came every day, and this.
Yeah.
There was that one time that you felt the magic in that one scene, in that one show.
Yeah.
And that's it. You knew
that
that's not something that you will ever be able to recreate. But you have the professionalism to get to that par without necessarily feeling the magic every day. And one of the things that we forget, Aditi, that, we know that it's the performer and then there is the audience.
Yeah.
And both are things that you need to create magic.
Yeah.
But it's also the space in between.
That's what I was
the performer and the audience, where magic happens.
That's so
and
true.
That's something that you can't put your finger to. Because when magic happens, everybody, it doesn't just happen for you or me in the audience, but for everybody, it's a magical experience.
So beautifully put. Is there anybody who has lost the audience right when they came, they sensed it, and then they commanded the room after that? They brought it back. They brought them. Does that ever happen?
So many. I mean, in Edinburgh, if you go to the festival there, and especially if you go to the comedy season, which happens at the Assembly Rooms or Pleasance or C venues or wherever, you see that, somebody comes on fresh, loses the plot. You know that, oh my God, I really flubbed this. And then there's those ones who then get back into the stride and are able to start over again. It's damn difficult. It doesn't happen every day. But they are able to get into the stride and get back that kind of control that you need. And similarly, whether it's in theater or in music, I've seen a performance by an exceptional performer which just started on an off note. And you could see that she was so stunned. I mean, she couldn't believe that in Carnegie Hall, she'd started this mega concert, totally off. And because I was sitting very up front and close, you could see the
panic.
Not the panic, just the shock as to how did this happen to me? And then correcting. In one case, they just started again. One particular, again, very eminent a violinist stopped and said, I'm really sorry. I'm going to start this piece again. And start the piece again. And you could see centering themselves, giving themselves that moment of, as we know, silence and calm, and then going into the piece and giving off themselves. I think when you surrender, you can fight it for a while, which I think is the process. And then when you surrender, that's when you feel the healing, right? And if you don't surrender, if the ego continues to be the primary object in anything, then you're closed. Then you're never going to see or feel the magic or look around and see what's the amazing stuff that we see around us.
Share an incident from your life where you did this.
Oh, that's a difficult one. I hate talking about myself, but yeah.
We will be talking a lot more about you. This is just a warm-up.
I remember there was a time that I was playing Tughlaq in Girish Karnath's Tughlaq in our school production. The play had opened really badly. Really, it was the opening day, and like opening days, school productions, everything went wrong. Sets, costume, whatever. And then was the major speech that I give halfway through, that the light should not be lit in any home in Delhi. And I felt that magic, just at that point where everything had been going totally crazy.
Yeah.
I just felt that magic overpower me. And then the rest was history. It was a, spectacular, whatever, standing ovation. And there's so many instances like that, both on stage and otherwise, that, because when you step out, as I've said this yesterday to somebody, I said, nobody sets out to do a film or a show or a podcast saying, I'm going to do the worst thing. Everybody sets out to do an Academy Award-winning performance or an Emmy Award-winning or a Grammy Award-winning music performance album, right?
Yeah.
But then stuff happens in between. And where, you know what it's like when you're shooting.
Yeah.
Most of it is, you just about hang on to control as a director and hope for the best that, it'll come together at the end. And sometimes it does. And a lot of the times, as we know, it doesn't. But you have to have that energy and the belief. And that's why I think directors tend to be so crazy or so dictatorial or so didactic.
Yeah.
Because you have to get to the end of that journey.
Yeah.
And Shekhar Kapoor once, in a conversation like this that I was having with him at JLF, I said, Shekhar, there was a time, I think it was Emma Watson or whoever. No, it was in Elizabeth, when he was shooting Elizabeth. And he goes on the set and his star sort of looks at him after a while and says, Shekhar, you really don't know what the scene is, right? Oh. And he was like, yeah, I have no idea. So Shekhar goes to the set with a sense of, let me discover as well. So that, there's so many different ways to approach this.
You mentioned ego. I want to talk about that a little bit. Given that you've handled so many egos, so many fragile sense of self or I am, how do you handle it?
You're absolutely right. Ego is a big thing. And it's not that people come necessarily with their ego per se. It's a lot of the time it's the insecurity, especially for public-facing people. They're never sure how they're going to be received. They're never sure about their tomorrow. They're never sure whether they're going to fall from the dizzy heights and what will happen. And that's part of the process, right? Especially in the world of television or acting or film or theater or writing, etc. So I keep telling my colleagues, I said, when somebody, if anything goes wrong and there's a hysterical moment, and we say this to our volunteers with the core of the Jaipur Literature Festival, I said, start by saying sorry. Doesn't matter whether it's your fault, not your fault, the person is being aggressive, the person is being rude, whatever. Just start by saying sorry, saying, really sorry. Can I help? And if you can't help, then say, I'll call a manager or whoever that can, whatever. If you're going to let your ego get in the way, then that's going to be really problematic. And I'll give you an example. I was the president of a particular association, and I think I'm cool. I think I can keep my ego in check and stuff like that. But I didn't realize that in dealing with a particular person in that organization who was also an office bearer, that I actually let my ego get in the way, and perhaps I should have played it differently. In hindsight.
We're always smarter.
In hindsight, And I regretted that. I said, yes, he may be whatever he was. He may have done every kind of horrible thing, but should I have allowed that to impact me? And should I have then responded from a place of ego as opposed to a place of empathy and respect, irrespective of how good, bad, or ugly the other side works. And in my kind of situation, it's very rare that people will come and dump on me, but it's very often that they dump on one of my colleagues. And that's not acceptable either. That one has to be very clear as to where you draw the line. And I always tell my colleagues, don't do it from a place of ego, but respect is a two-way street. do not allow yourself to be disrespected as well. So ego is one thing, disrespect is the other spectrum. You have to do whatever you do in a calm and collected way, not necessarily responding from ego, but ensure that you're not taking disrespect.
But how does one handle a difficult person? Because, like I said, that in your case,
Love and empathy. Aditi, you know this.
I know it, but
Love and
it
empathy.
is easier said than done, right?
Nothing is easy. Come on. Nothing is easy in the world. Dealing with our parents, our kids, our grandkids, our cats, our dogs. None of that. Our staff. Our automatic default is, थप्पड़ मार दूंगा या चुप करके बैठो या क्या सोचा है और तुम्हें पता नहीं कि मैं कौन हूँ. These are our default settings as human beings. And if you're in a position of power, you treat other people in a particular way. And this is not today. This is time immemorial. And this is human nature. So if you're able to keep yourself in check, if you're aware that you're responding in a particular way, if like you've gone on a journey which allows you that understanding by responding irrespective from a place of respect, empathy, and where possible, love. If I'm going to meet somebody who's really like yesterday in our board meeting, last few days, all I've been doing is sending love and light to all our board members, all our colleagues who are presenting, so that we're in a place, common ground. We can prepare that. You know that the power, each of us has the power within us.
Yeah.
We don't have to get it from anywhere else.
Yeah.
We have it within us to heal ourselves, to heal the adversary, to heal anybody else who needs healing, and do all of this from a place of being centered.
You have to train your team members, volunteers, etc., not to take disrespect. How do you tell them? Because in that situation, when everything is, somebody is hysterical, somebody saying, oh, how could you do this to me? Or I am just about to go on stage and I am this and that. At that moment, even if this becomes theory in that sense, how do you put it in practice?
So one of the things that in the training program that the volunteers go through, one of the things that we say is when you see somebody who's got really angry or abusive or whatever, step back. Start by stepping back. Take yourself out of confrontation because it's not for you to pick that fight or take on that fight. Go call your managers or whoever it is. Our colleagues in teamwork know that the last thing that they should be doing is throwing a shit fit. And it doesn't matter whether our vendors haven't delivered, stuff isn't ready on time. All of that happens. That's part of the course. But this is something that you have to self-learn. I am OCD. I have an obsessive compulsive disorder in terms of getting everything perfect, which drives everybody mad. So over time, I've had to train myself to step back and tell myself, it's okay. Doesn't have to be perfect. The cup doesn't have to be perfectly aligned. It doesn't have to be. Should be, but it doesn't have to be. You have to train yourself. It's a training process.
It is.
And it happens through, as you know, introspection, understanding, acceptance that you are crazy. I think we all are at some level. We deny, we're always in a state of denial ki मैंने नहीं किया या मैंने नहीं बोला या तुमने शुरुआत की और उसने किया or or whatever. So you have to go through that process, and it's not easy. And you fail, initially 10 times out of 10, and then 9 out of 10, and then 8 and 7 and 6, and somewhere you will find that balance. And finding that balance is both a process of maturing, and I'm not talking about age.
No.
Just experience, understanding the inner journey, the inner journey. And all of us react differently at different points of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it is.
You have spoken about this beautiful experience that you went through when you were at the gate, when the gates had just opened, and there was a man who came with his child. Tell us about that journey, that story.
So this is in the Oprah Winfrey year, I think year 4. Because Oprah was coming, we put into place a lot of security. And, I receive people when you come, hopefully next year, you'll see. I receive people for an hour, because I feel that when you're coming into a vast space and it's, completely unknown, who do you respond to? So we used to open the gates at 7:30 a.m. at Diggy, and I was standing. And this man and a boy came through the Haveli gate of Diggy. And they didn't look like they belonged, and they were stopped by the guard, by the security. And because I was there, I went and I said, Bhaiya, kya baat hai? Can I help you? And he said, मैं SMS hospital के आगे footpath पे सोता हूँ, रहता हूँ. I sleep on the footpath in front of the SMS hospital up the street. And I know that I will never be able to afford to send my son to school, nor be able to afford to buy him a book. But I thought if he heard a story, it would change his life forever. And I hear you tell stories here. So I brought him. And he then apologized and he turned to go. And I said, no, please come in. This is for you. And for us, it was the first time that we realized that what we had set off to do is to create a city accessible festival for everybody, not just for you and me and for these folks in the room, but for those folks who do not have access. And for the first time, in a place like Jaipur, Rajasthan, which lives, in many centuries at the same time, for him to think that he could walk through the gates of Diggy Palace into a different world, but that world was accessible to him. For us, that was a huge moment of understanding, of realizing that what we had wanted to set up with, equal opportunity or equal access and no reserve seating and free whatever had finally happened. And this wasn't just for, the high and the mighty.
So beautifully said. That is so nice. And that brings me to the work that you're doing for Salaam Baalak. How did that start? And what is it about giving dignity to children that attracted you to that field?
We said, let's try and see where there are clusters of street children. And we did this research, Nehru Place, New Delhi Railway Station. And we started the program with Cecil, giving them an boiled anda and a glass of milk and reading newspaper. And that then graduated to us doing a theater workshop. Barry used to do a theater workshop with these kids. And we saw what a difference it made to their lives. So TAG started a program called Nukkar. Meera Nair got very inspired by the idea of street children, etc. Sunita Rapuravara wrote the script for Salaam Bombay. Barry came out and did the workshops with these street kids who Meera and Dinaz had cast in the movie. And we then said, okay, now that the movie is done, we need to rehabilitate these children. We can't send them back to the street. So we set up Salaam Baalak Trust to send them to find a way to rehabilitate them, mainstream. And because Nukkar was very much part of this journey, we then, Salaam Baalak Trust, we sort of looked at funding Nukkar, and then we just absorbed Nukkar. And by which time Puneeta and I were married, we had our kids. And every time any city you drive in, Aditi, on your way back, stop at a traffic light, you'll see these kids, etc. And Puneeta and I always used to feel if our kids, by the accident of birth, could have everything, why can't these kids have stuff? And I remember the crux came when, again, cold winter night, Mrs. Nair and I drove down, Meera's mom and I drove down to the New Delhi railway station with blankets and sweaters. And we handed it out to the kids who we were working with at SBT. And the little kid said, Bhaiya, ye mat dena hame. And I was like, it's so cold. I mean, wear a kambal at night. And they said, nahi, agar hum kambal odenge, to koi hamare saath galat cheez karenge.
Oh my God.
तो आप कंबल रख लीजिएगा, हम अपने shirt के अंदर हम newspaper डालेंगे, and we'll sniff glue to keep away the cold. So that hit home. Then we said, okay, here's a sweater, and here's a second sweater. And they said, भैया दीदी आप दूसरा स्वेटर आप रख लीजिए ना, जब ये गिर जाएगा तब आप स्वेटर देना. And we didn't understand. We said, but this is going to get dirty. You wash one, wear one.
Yeah.
Like we do. That's our reality. And they said, but भैया हम कहाँ पे रखेंगे? ये हम पहनते रहेंगे क्योंकि हम तो नहा नहीं सकते ना. क्योंकि अगर हम कपड़े निकालेंगे, नहा लेंगे, कोई आके हमारा कपड़ा छीन लेंगे या हमारे साथ कुछ करेंगे, तो ये जब गिर जाएगा बदन से तब आप देना. So that's when we said we better now set up shelters which are full care for Salaam Baalak Trust. So we started with 25 kids and 3 staff. Today we look after about 14,000 kids every
That's
year.
amazing.
We have 300 staff, 17 centers in Delhi. And all of these kids, Aditi, I mean, most of these kids we send back home if we know their addresses, if we can find their addresses. But the kids who stay with us, they go to school, they take scholarships. Vicky Roy, for example, is one of the most renowned photographers today in the world, where his work sits in most museums across the world. He was commissioned to record the rebuilding of the World Trade Center. We have kids who've been to America on scholarships. We get 14 scholarships from Australia. Many of my colleagues at Teamwork are from Salaam Baalak Trust today, earning 6-figure salaries, doing really well. And our belief is if you give a kid an enabled and equal playing field, he or she or they will be able to benefit as much as anybody else.
They can flourish. They can blossom.
They can and they do. I was in JLF Seattle and this lad comes up to me and he said, Bhaiya, you don't remember me? I'm from Salaam Baalak Trust. Today I'm a manager at Boeing.
Oh. That's awesome. 2
of our kids have been in Oscar-nominated movies. Recently, the movie, the short film that went for the Academy, that had one of our girls in it. And then Chota Salim was in Little Terrorist, which Ashwin Kumar made many years ago. Many of them have directed films in Bollywood, released those films, have acted, all over the place, and so many of these other films, mainstream. So, yeah, you give them an opportunity, they shine.
That's awesome. The work that you're doing is really hats off. Now, coming to you as a person, coming to energy, you've written a book. I have read it. It's amazing. There are times when I'm like, oh my God, am I doing that? Because I'm scared of ghosts. You've written the whole book on ghosts. Speak to us about that a little.
So, all of these, I mean, you're a doctor and you know how these things happen to some extent. But when these incidents first happened, it's not that I thought that they were ghosts. My first supernatural experience was at the age of 5. But I looked at it as supernatural much later, looking back. We had gone to my grandparents' home in Calcutta. My grandfather had passed away. I was climbing into bed. All the lights were on, the chandeliers, everything was on. I was wondering whether to ask my grandmom to read me a story or tell me a story. Was it appropriate or not? And just then I saw this disembodied hand flash across the mosquito net with a dagger in the hand. And I screamed the place down. I mean, I screamed and screamed and screamed and screamed. The whole, all the house staff came running, the uncles and aunts. And I said, they had to open every unopened room in that home and every cupboard and looked under every bed and there was nothing. But I didn't know it was a ghost at that point of time. It was only when Puneeta began her spiritual journey and in that process, one started realizing that perhaps what one was seeing were energies from a different reality, and there's a thing that I tend to attract dark energies. Puneeta is a healer. She's able to heal. And that's when one began to articulate the idea that these were other beings that you don't necessarily make sense of. And 9 times out of 10, or rather, 9.9 times out of 10, even today when there is an encounter, it frightens the shit out of me. So, typically I'll scream, jump around, run out of the room kind of stuff. It's only literally been 2 times in all of these incidents that it's been kind of okay, Casper kind of ghost to, you look at the ghost looks at you, or energy looks at you and you're kind of okay. Or this Madame Durrell, another story up in the mountains. And it's something that one has grown used to living with, not just me, but Puneeta, our kids, we all seem to be this Addams family, being able to conjure up these other kinds of energies. And what was really heartbreaking, post There's a Ghost in My Room's release, every time I go somewhere, somebody shares a story with me. And I remember when the book first came out, Mala Singh, in Delhi called me and said, Sanjoy, you're so brave. I said, why? What happened? He said, you've written about, your experiences. I said, yeah. She said, but I've had experiences too. So I said, why haven't you written about them? She said, Sanjoy, people will think I'm nuts. I'm like, Mala, people know you're nuts. So no problem there. And anyway, everybody thinks I'm mad. So no problem there either. So in the writing now, we're doing an anthology. And our elder son sent in his story of his first house in Goa, which I used to hate because I couldn't even sit there for a second because I just felt it was so full of other beings. And he recounts how in this one incident, he's hearing them ask him, so where do you want us to hurt you?
Oh.
On the bottom half of your body or the top half of your body? And he says, bottom half. And he feels this intense burning sensation on his leg. And then they're like, where do you want us to hurt you now? As a parent, absolutely heartbreaking that you see or hear this kind of stuff. So, one is, irrespective of how much you live with, I won't call them ghosts, but I'll call them these other energies or other realities, it's very difficult to get used to it.
So typically when you speak to an educated person or somebody who is skeptical about it, they are going to scoff at the idea. They are going to ask you to prove it. What do you say to those kind of people?
I'm not here to prove anything. I myself am skeptical. If Google Map tells me, my instinct tells me make a left, and Google Map tells me make a right, I'll fight with which one should I take. And invariably, I know I should have taken my instinct. So I'm not here to convince anybody. But exactly this question that you asked, we were in the nursery doing a conversation. I was with Ambassador Navteet Sarna and Dr. Naresh Trehan from Vedanta and Madhu, his wife, were both in the audience. And Doc got up and said, you may be skeptical, but I see this regularly, as does Madhu. For us, these exist. I mean, I'm skeptical too. And why does it happen to me? I don't know. And are these people who I know? No, I don't. Are these people I want to know? No, I don't. Is none of the above. And do I understand a lot of what they're saying some of the time? No, I don't, because it's in a completely bizarre or different language. But the fact that it happens and, I engage with them and they want to have this conversation. My only issue with all of this is, why do you have to do it at 2:00 in the morning? If your ectoplasm floating on your ceiling, can you do it at a respectable time? And set up an appointment. I'm very happy to have a conversation with you and sort out whatever problem you may have. But do it as per schedule. Don't just,
they're not as disciplined as you are.
They're not disciplined. That's
at
the
all.
problem with,
One story which I clearly remember is Puneeta levitating. And your team members were in the same room as her, and you were having a conversation. Tell us that story.
So we were in Khajuraho. This is 1999. As you know, the temples of Khajuraho were completed in 999 Common Era CE. And we were celebrating the turn of the millennium, plus the celebration of the Khajuraho temples. The President of India had been invited. We were going to do this big show at the Shiv Kund in Khajuraho in the main temple complex. And really complicated show across the water, president, all of the protocol, music, bands. I mean, the works. Think of it, the works. Returned every evening after production. All the production stuff came back. sitting around in our room at the Lalit Hotel in Khajuraho in our suite. And Puneeta just goes to sleep wherever she can. She loves sleeping. I can't sleep, so she makes up. And she was on the bed with a light cotton white bed sheet on her. And even as we were sitting, we look at her suddenly, and you see her whole body sort of going in this wave motion, and everything sort of elevated, and the sheet and so on and so forth. It was whacked out.
Yeah.
It freaked us all out. And then, all the grandmother's tales kick in, right? When a person is like that, don't wake them up. They'll be in a... So we waited for her to subside, and then it happened again the second time. This whole body sort of, in an elevated... It wasn't necessarily levitating per se, but it was certainly elevated, and it went in this wave fashion. Again, waited for it to subside, woke her up. She had no recollection at all of anything that had happened to her. Anyway, event went off really well. We came back to Delhi. She had begun a spiritual journey. She went to Gurudev and she said, Gurudev, what was that about? And her ascended master said, well, why don't you do a past life regression and figure what this was about? And in that past life regression, she sees that all of us 1,000 years ago were in Khajuraho. I was a big baddie priest, ego big time, doing all sorts of nasty, horrible things that many people do even today in the guise of priesthood. And she was a very powerful sadhvi with a lot of siddhis. And she decided to take me on or teach me a lesson or take me on, but wasn't able to win that battle. And, and that drives her crazy or drives her bad, and maybe she takes her life or whatever. And we've come back in this lifetime, all of us, and all of these people, even my colleagues in the office, our close friends, all of us have chosen to come back to be able to resolve and heal some of what we have done. And Puneeta keeps joking that all of these tens of thousands of kids that, we look after at Salaam Baalak Trust, I look after, she said, this is all possibly from your past that you're giving back. But the fact today that, wherever we set up shop, whether it's in Varanasi or in Khajuraho or in sacred Amritsar or in Spain in Valladolid or in Ireland, all of these places have some semblance of the need for healing or a need for love energy, for the lack of a better word.
What is the purpose of your life?
What's been said to me, so I'll say that as opposed to what I've divined, is that my purpose was 3: ego, learn to control ego, power, understand power, and understand money, or perhaps understand that that's not everything. So it's really these 3 things. And, if you look back, or if I look back now, 6 odd decades, all of this sort of adds up at some level. Everything, every lesson that one has learned or intuited, or the times that one has faced, have all been to some extent this learning process. And even today, and this is something that I share with everybody, and I'm sure you do too, that when you look at the shit that happens to you, and sometimes shit happens, as we all know, you have to look at it as from a point of view of, oh my God, why is it happening to me? Or what's the lesson I need to learn from it? And if you're able to learn the lesson from it, bad relationship, bad karma, bad whatever at work, whatever it is, you're able to break that.
That pattern breaks.
The pattern breaks.
And then you evolve.
And then you move on to your
breaking
next.
Another pattern.
Yeah, because that's what we're here to do, right? And as long as we're aware of what that pattern is, awareness, I think, is the big learning. Whether you're able to break it or not, that's really secondary, and that's a whole different effort and whole different learning. And a lot of the time, both Puneeta and I, if there are friends or people who we encounter who are going through difficult times, either in a relationship with their parents, with their kids, with each other, with their jobs, we're like, be aware and don't play victim.
Yeah.
Again, our default setting
Why
is...
me? Why is it happening to me?
I'm the victim.
Yeah.
Look at the rest of the world. Everybody's beating up on me. But we know, and it's so funny, Aditi, this time in Ireland, in the JLF Island of Ireland Festival. So we did 3 conversations back to back on reunification, for and against, with Sam McBride and Fintan O'Toole. And each of the conversations were very different. Belfast was different from Armagh. Armagh was different from Dublin. And in Dublin, it was so remarkable because when we were listening to Caroline Elkins talking to William Dalrymple about what the English and the Irish did to the Africans, somebody in the audience got up and said, we've always thought of ourselves as the victims. This is the first time that we're realizing that we were the perpetrators as much as anybody else. And this that we keep wearing on our sleeve, that we are the victims, is the convenient, not necessarily the truth.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. You've spoken about AI and how it cannot replace creativity. You did an experiment with Van Gogh's painting. Do you still stick to that? Or have you changed? Because AI has evolved a lot.
AI has evolved hugely. And, this is an experiment that Marcus de Sautoy, the Samoyani professor for the advancement of sciences in Oxford, put together. And we had done at JLF. And so this is pre-COVID, 2019. We had loaded all of Van Gogh's paintings, shown what computer generated, shown what the original was. 90% or 95% of the audience got it right in terms of which is the genuine and which was AI driven. And when we asked why, they said because the AI computer generated one was perfect. So when you look at human imperfection and you put that into writing or cinema or theater or music, that's what gives it its soul. That's what gives it its substance. That's what gives it its meaning. And no 2 concerts of Zakir Hussain or Ali Akbar Khan Saab or Vilayat Khan Saab or Al Subramaniam or Cher or whoever will be the same because this is the original thing.
Yeah.
It's not computer generated. We did the same thing with J.K. Rowling's book. We loaded everything. Marcus loaded everything and then said, now, next episode. So it started really well. Thunder and lightning, the fog had rolled in, the door creaked open, there was this flash of light. Hermione steps out and then it fell apart. It goes to the rock and starts eating its brain because the algorithms picked that up.
Yeah.
Today, AI can generate amazing poetry, can generate some good crime fiction and stuff like that. Can generate great ad films, short films, anything. I mean, somebody came to do a demo of a Lexus car ad, which the company, I think, Lexus, whichever the car ad was, the company had spent like crores making it. He did it in 48 hours in 100,000 the cost. So AI is pretty much here to stay. AI is as creative as you nudge it to be. AI has that power to assimilate from across that we don't and be able to give a creation to your articulation. What I feel that it cannot do is have that magic moment. That magic moment that I said in the spaces between where the audience is and where the performer is. That real experience. And the example I keep giving is that, of course, we all took to Zoom and FaceTime, etc. during COVID. Post-COVID, everybody wanted this real experience. We could have done the same thing on Zoom, Aditi, at 100th the cost. You could have just dialed me in. I wouldn't have to travel out. would we have been able to exchange an energy in this room with everybody?
Yeah.
AI
No,
can't do that.
it cannot. Yeah.
AI can't replicate that. Maybe it will in the future. But as of now, I still feel that it's a vehicle that you can use intelligently to be able to articulate. Not everybody is articulate like you and me. Not everybody can write like you, me, and the doctor. But everybody wants to be able to tell their story. If AI can help them do that, either through film or painting or visual or photography or whatever, well, go for it. Can AI be the original? No, it can't. It still needs you or me or her or him or her to be able to articulate that. So the live experience part of it or the talent part of it, I mean, that Pavarotti or Ambi Subramaniam or Shubha Mudgul, live as an experience with the other, but also with the imperfection, is something that you can't recreate. A Hot August Night, Neil Diamond's continues to outsell itself. It's the same songs you can get doctored and mastered in a studio. Hot August Night is magical, or Woodstock was magical, and its recording was magical because there was magic. And that magic was captured. Has anybody been able to create Woodstock ever since? No. Has anybody been able to create Live Aid ever since? No.
But that happens with monuments as well. I've seen a few monuments where you go there and you're like, oh my God, this is so different.
The magic.
Exactly. That cannot be replicated, right? Because pictures or films even, where you see these monuments, you've seen them 100 times. When you go there and you see it in person, it's something else.
Absolutely.
That is so true. Very well put. Thank you so much, Sanjoy, for being on this show and sharing so many. They were really enlightening, these incidences that you shared with me. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Aditi. Absolute honor and pleasure to be here, and best wishes and more power to you and all that you've articulated and your wonderful energy and everything that you've been doing and your amazing spiritual journey.
Thank you so much.